Brought to you by the EveryDollar app. Start budgeting for free today.
My brother-in-law, he's a little younger than me. He's 24. He's a pretty successful guy, crazy hard worker. But he's starting to get caught up in a peer-to-peer lending program that unfortunately another family friend is talking him into. I know I can't, just kind of be like, this is stupid and end it at that. Do you guys have any advice? How do I talk to him about this? Because he's trying to make sure it's legit, but he's also just keeps getting further into it. So,
Well, the only way you can convince someone is to the extent of the quality of your relationship with them. So if you have a deeper relationship with him than this family friend, then you've got the ability to get between them. But if you have a casual relationship with him that's about equal to the family friend, you're probably not going to be successful at this.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough scenario that they're highlighting. He didn't really elaborate on what type of peer-to-peer lending this is. Obviously, this individual is not a fan of whatever type of peer-to-peer lending program this could be, but to at least highlight some of the peer-to-peer lending scenarios that I know of. So there could be like a direct peer-to-peer lending scenario, which is maybe this friend is even trying to get this brother-in-law to loan them some money through some type of peer-to-peer lending system, where basically the family member can act as a lender or a bank in this case. There's also or to some other individual. There's also peer-to-peer lending platforms that exist, which was what initially came to mind. So there's some scenarios where basically, again, you act as a bank or a lender to other folks who need loans. And so there are platforms that enable you to do this today. And so maybe somebody needs a $10,000 loan or something like that, and you put in $100, and a lot of people put in $100, and then this gets added up and it gets sent over to that individual. They have standard loan terms, and then basically that individual paying back their loan goes to you and everybody else who participated in it, as well as the platform who's hosting it. So I have heard of these platforms. I haven't dabbled with them myself. I think one of the hardest parts is all of the information is private, and so therefore things like, what is the actual chance that these loans are going to be completely paid in full? What are the interest rates? What are the credit rates of the individuals who are getting these things? Are generally known by the platform, but not necessarily by the individuals who are paying into it. And so it is something that I've seen. It definitely comes up when you look for things like passive investments or passive income options. So it's not something that I have used myself. I'm not sure if they are inherently dangerous, so I'm not entirely sure why this individual seems to be so against it. Maybe they'll share more. Again, maybe this is a direct peer-to-peer lending where this family member is going to put in 100% of the loan amount and maybe give favorable terms to a friend or another family member. Maybe it is part of this platform. And again, I haven't used it personally and I haven't seen too much data on it. My understanding is, from what I've seen, is that they do return money, but it's unclear whether or not that is worthwhile compared to other investment vehicles.
In order to hold someone accountable, and smack them in the back of the head, you have to get your arm around their shoulder.
That's fair.
It starts with a hug. So, those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. I've had very little luck in my life answering questions that people didn't ask.
Mm-hmm.
He has asked.
Oh, good.
Which is cool, and
he called you and asked you about this.
Yeah, he was talking with me about it, and I was like, "There's a lot of red flags going up, man." And so he's just been sending me things about it, and I've been.
Is he trying to sell you in joining it?
No, I think he's just trying to sell himself and kind of prove he can discuss me on it.
Well, now you've got him in a good spot.
Well, that's okay then. That's good. Yeah. So I think that your best shot for persuasion is in person, in private. You don't want to embarrass him in front of your sister that he's married to. I think, or your wife is his sister. I don't know, whichever it is, his brother-in-law. But yeah, so no embarrassment. This is not going to be over a dinner with the gals. and you start.
Yeah.
But basically, what I would do is not call him stupid. What I found is that the stuff that I did that was really stupid when I was 24 came from trying to find a shortcut. I was trying to find a way to get rich quick. And it's very humorous to think about that loaning money to broke people loaning money to broke people is going to cause you to get wealthy. That's
a great point that Dave brings up here, which is, I think, a common thing that happens to a lot of folks. I've seen a lot of folks do this like whole life insurance, the Bitcoin, other aspects of scenarios that they think are going to get them ahead, maybe like NFTs or some cool new fangled financial thing or sports betting or something like that. And a lot of times it's because folks are trying to chase these massive returns, because consistent returns exist. You could have a high yield savings account, you could get a bond, you could get investing in like an index fund or something like that, and then have steady but consistent returns over time, especially the longer out that it gets. But some folks are looking to double their money, triple their money, 10x their money like tomorrow. And unfortunately, a lot of folks do try chasing these types of returns. And in many cases, these are negative scenarios for them. So with potential reward, there's also potential risk. And so like Bitcoin, as an example, that's something that I think if you have been watching it over time, they've had huge growth, and then they've also had huge crashes over the last decade or so. And if you are buying it at a low and then you get a 10, 20, 30x return over the course of like a year, that's really exciting. But there's also individuals who likely bought at the peak of Bitcoin or pretty high on, and then maybe the inverse happened where they're only getting a fraction, maybe a couple % of what they initially invested. And so this is where, even in scenarios where some people are making money, it doesn't mean everybody is making money in them. And so that's something that you also need to be mindful of, which is you should be looking at the risks and also understanding what is the worst case that's going to happen if you follow this, and are you willing to live with that case? And so I think that's a great point that Dave brought up.
What peer-to-peer lending is.
It's even funnier than that, because he's borrowing to lend to the peer-to-peer, but he's also like really successful for his age. Like, I think he could easily retire in like 10, 20 years if he wanted to.
Yeah, but he's not successful with this. He's successful because he's ambitious and a hard worker, and he looked over here and went, this may look on the outside like it doesn't work, but I'm smart enough, I can do this. That's what I did, and that's how I lost my butt.
Yeah, Elliot, I jump in real quick to say, I think since he's opened the door to you and your first response was red flags, I think you got to go back, just as Dave said, one-on-one and say, hey, I've done my research. And let me tell you what the data says that the risks are. And I would, in this case, play to the natural, real fear to the actual high-risk situation. This is not a manipulation. This stuff is really, really risky. Start talking about the psychological and the relationship stuff. Start talking about it's not an actual good investment strategy compared to, and start showing like the Ramsey, go to our website.
Basically loaning money to people no one else will loan money to.
Yeah, you got to make the case.
Yeah.
But make the case.
Kind of dumb.
But it's got to be data-based, right? And say, man, this is risky. Here's why.
And the other thing I would do is I would appeal to him to say, okay, let's study wealthy people. How many of them used shortcuts to get there? They really don't. They use their innate work ethic and go-getter mentality. In other words, I think, Elliot, that your brother-in-law's secret sauce is him, not that he hasn't found the right thing to accelerate it yet. He's the secret sauce. I want him to hear from you that you think he's amazing and that this is a total waste. It'd be a waste of his time. He's going to get he's got the ability to go far and go fast if he stays away from things like this.
Yeah.
Because of who he is. So you've got this admiration of him until he lost his mind on this one thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I'm looking at him like, man, you've been doing so well up to this.
I would say that over and over and over again. His secret sauce,
I've
his
been-
secret sauce is him. He's the secret sauce. It's not that he needs to find some, the multi-level people all go, you need to find a vehicle. No, you don't. You're the vehicle. I need to find a system. No, you don't. You're the system. Live on less than you make and save money. Work your butt off. That's the system. And that's the one that the wealthy people use. They don't go, oh, I found a Bitcoin. Look at that. It made it easy. Ooh, I found an algorithm where I can do lotto tickets. No, you didn't. Okay? And so, this is what get rich quick is based on.
That's right.
Is based on desperation or greed.
Yeah.
And it always, in either case, requires a level of pride, and pride is what comes right before you fall. I did every one of these stupid butt things. Every part of my story of losing everything in my 20s is because of those exact things. Mm-hmm. Because I thought I could do nothing down, flip real estate, and get away with it because I was so smart. And everyone that does that eventually goes completely freaking broke.
Yeah.
All the guys that did it when I did it are all either out of the business or they paid off their debt, one of the two. Yeah. They either went broke, doing nothing down, flipped this house before there was Chip and Joanna. They weren't even born yet. Okay? And so this stuff has been around forever, but it's all rooted in desperation or greed. In your brother-in-law's case, it's greed.
That's right.
Not filthy greed, like horrible, nasty person greed, just like I think I can do this because I'm smarter than the average cat. The rules don't apply to me because I'm smart and I work hard and I'm ahead of the game.
There's something about all of these things that are...
Yeah, this is a great point that they're also bringing up, which is, to some extent, sort of like this halo effect occurs where folks can do this to themselves and also to others, where if you're particularly successful or knowledgeable in one aspect of your life or a particular field, people look to you and assume that you are knowledgeable in a lot of fields. So I think classic examples of this are like celebrities or influencers. Because they have all this success, people look at them and say they must know something I don't. And while that is true to a certain extent within the field that they're in, so I'm sure if you spoke to an actor or a celebrity about their acting skill or how they play a role or how they find roles, I'm sure there's a wealth of knowledge there. But oftentimes some of these celebrities do things like they start building new product lines and they start getting into other things. And sometimes these things can fall apart because they actually don't know as much about these other areas as they do in their primary focus area. And so this can happen quite a bit, which is you can get a false sense of knowledge and wisdom when you start to look into other areas and you start assuming that you are working at the top tier level across the board. And this is something that I'm sure folks struggle with. I know it's something that I try to keep myself humble on from time to time, which is I think of myself as somebody who's been successful in their career. They're progressing well, but I don't know everything. I'm not going to be an expert at a variety of things. And so you should look at everything as though you're looking at it for the first time. And so I usually try to ask myself questions. And for this individual, I'd be asking the family member questions about like, what are they trying to achieve with this? Because I think that's an aspect that I also find they haven't really covered yet. They're highlighting greed here, but maybe there is some other aspect, like maybe the family member is looking to build a down payment for a home for their family. Maybe they're looking to prepare for retirement, or maybe they're having a child on the way. And so I think you need to understand the other individual's rationale. Why do they want to do this thing, and why do they think this is good or good for them at this point in time? And that's where you can start to shift the narrative, because I do agree data is going to help. But to some extent, if you aren't working off of the same information that the other individual is working off of, you're never going to be able to convince them of making a change. So you should also be looking to understand the scenario they're in. And you can do this with yourself as well. So in this case, he's referencing a family member. But you could do this for yourself. So if you are encountering one of these new financial mechanisms that exist, and somebody's toting, yeah, you're going to be able to get 100% growth over the next year, 200%, whatever it is, it's getting you excited for some reason. You should be asking yourself, why am I excited about this? What is the purpose of why this is interesting to me? And what am I actually looking for? And again, you can start to look into what are the best avenues for that? Like, what is the best thing to do when you're planning for a home, for retirement, for having a child? And start to understand what people recommend in those spaces, and then start to compare that with what you're looking at, either for yourself or another individual if you're in a scenario like this where you're trying to help somebody else. And I feel like that can really help. Come at it as though you are not an expert and try to ask yourself, what is the foundational information that I would need, and how do you build up on that?
I want to make sure the audience catches what Dave said earlier. Every shortcut that exists always requires you to suspend common sense. And the reason it does is because you feel like it's that emotional, I figured out the hack and I'm going to short circuit the system. Yeah. And so your emotion takes over.
So the law of gravity doesn't apply to me.
Exactly. That's emotion.
Flap your arms, boy. You're about to hit the sidewalk. Law of gravity applies. Boom.
Put your helmet on.
Little print right there on the sidewalk. I know, man. That's exactly what I did. You know, I understand. I understood intellectually the dangers of leverage. Yeah. But I thought I could beat it.
That's the classic example.
Flap your dadgum arms and hit the sidewalk. That's it, man. The law of gravity does not apply to me. Mm-hmm. This is The Ramsey Show. Create your free Every Dollar budget today, the simplest way to budget for your life.
Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, please hit like or subscribe. I will see you around.